I was shocked at myself. Like, despite the uncertainty and chaos of last year, I had so much fun. At least Q1 and Q2 of 2026 is what I'm going to be doing. The author talks about getting 1% better every day. And I was like, if I can put in 2% today. Bonjour, folks. I'm Sass, and welcome to Creator Conversations. It is Saturday, January 3rd, 2026. We're officially in the new year, and I thought I would try out a vlog style informal video because one of the goals I have for 2026 is to do more day in the life vlog style videos, give you all a peek behind the scenes of what I do, and just see how I feel, try a different form of content because I love watching vlogging videos. I love seeing people how they run their business or just go about their day to day. And so I really want to try that. It's This is my first attempt at that, so it's not going to be the most aesthetic or I don't know, cohesive. We'll see how this evolves, but this is the start. So today, what I want to do is have my computer. I want to do some planning in Notion, and I had used Notion last year. I downloaded a template from another creator, and it was basically a whole life operating system. So it covered everything from finances, work, uh, events. It was almost too thorough, too detailed. And I found that I spent so much time keeping track of the things that I was doing that I wasn't spending enough time doing the doing. And so I had given up on Notion about halfway through last year, and I went back to my trusty bullet journal, which I love me an analog paper and pen, write things down. I find there's something so satisfying about writing tasks down and checking them off that feels very tangible compared to a digital planner. But I also want to, if I downloaded or I used the other creator's template to create my own template just for project management. Because as I talked about in episode 1 and episode 2, the rebranding, refining, I'm at a stage of my business where I came into 2025 last year with a full rebrand, and now I'm doing the refining process. So I've changed out the logo, changed out the visuals, but now as I'm heading into 2026, what I'm focusing on is refining or refining my brand messaging and making it clear how I help people. Because I think for those of you who don't know, my background is as a sound designer, sound recordist on set, podcasts for podcasts and film, and I have transitioned into the sonic wellness space. And I want to be able to become a thought leader in that space and make it more well known and more prominent in the wellness space. And so that is the big work ahead of me in 2026 is getting myself up to speed with sound and wellness and how they both correlate, and also creating a name for myself within that space and transitioning my work so it's not solely focused on production sound, post production sound for film and podcasts. I would love to be working one on one with clients and groups and hosting more workshops because that's what I started doing last year. And so it's building out that part of the business is what at least Q1 and Q2 of 2026 is what I'm going to be doing. So today, I actually started um, my menstrual phase yesterday. So I came into the new year with day one menstrual phase energy, and I was a bit tired. But right after the menstrual phase is the follicular phase. One of the things I'm doing this year is working with my cycle, which is something I'm going to go into in another video. But I already have the post or the follicular phase energy. I feel very energized today. And so I said, even though it's Saturday, I'm going to use today to be productive because I have the momentum. And I read the book Atomic Habits, and he talks about, the author talks about getting 1% better every day. And I was like, if I can put in 2% today to cover another day where I don't have the ability to give 1%, then let me show up today and while I have the momentum and get that done. So for today, I want to do some planning out in my Notion for how my next week is going to look. So for the week of January 5th, this coming Monday, I want to get a head start on that. Because usually on Sundays, I try to do a weekly reflect and reset. And I said, I don't want to wait till Sunday to do that. I would love to just take my time this weekend, mapping out how I want the first full work week of the new year to look, and slowly getting into the tasks. Because one of the big tasks I have to do is finish reading this book, The Next Great Migration by Sonia Shah. I'm reading it to complete season 2 of the podcast, audio journals, because I was supposed to publish season 2 last spring, and that just didn't happen because I had to, or I wanted to revise these scripts so I can make the story as solid as it can be and support it with background information about immigration, because the season is going to talk about my immigration journey. But I wanted to be able to back it up with immigration statistics and immigration stories from other sources. So this book is about 400 pages total, but 321 pages of actual substance. And I want to be able to finish reading this over the weekend, if not at least by next Wednesday. And so I can finish the podcast scripts by the end of this month at the latest. And I would love to finish by January 15th, now that I'm thinking of it. So that's some of the work I have to do, is really plotting out what I want my weeks to look like and my days to look like, how I'm going to time block the tasks that I have to do. The first order of today is plotting out, just doing a brain dump of all of the tasks that I would like to accomplish within the first week, instead of trying to overwhelm myself planning out the whole month. I'm just really looking at what the overall tasks are for the month, and then I'm going to break it down into what the tasks are I need to accomplish for the first week. I'm just taking it a little bit by little bit, and I'm going to get started on that and then check in with you throughout the day. Bonjour, folks. So I'm taking a little break to make some lunch. I actually wrote down the quarterly goals. There's about 2 big goals for this quarter, and then I actually started doing some some research for the YouTube video that I want to put out, not next week, I think the following week, and also the first Substack article, which is going to be released next week. Let me turn on the stove here. Oops, hold on, before I do that, gotta make sure there's nothing in the stove. I think I'm just gonna roast some potatoes quickly. I've been craving, I think it's because I am in my menstrual phase. I've been craving starch and I really want potatoes. And I don't want to French fry them. Oops, I had turned on that oven fan, but as I was saying, I started doing some work just because I want to start reading some articles, because I have a lot of research to do. And one of the things in designing this or refining my job role is that because I want to be a thought leader, it's going to require a lot of research of the sound world, music, and just understanding the sound field as a whole in terms of music production, oral traditions like indigenous oral traditions, voice, and I'm looking forward to that. Like, it's going to be very research heavy, and that is very intentional because one of the things I've been very focused on in defining what kind of work I want to do and understanding, I guess you could say, my mission here and my calling, if you want to get esoteric about it. But I see myself as being able to translate sound creatively in terms of the custom soundscapes I create, but also the knowledge and history of it. Because I'm a history nerd at heart. I Historical fiction is my favorite genre of book, and I love reading world history and understanding what came before so we can understand why we're in the current state that we're in and how to improve things. Because a lot of times the world doesn't need to be completely reimagined. We just need to go back to the indigenous knowledge that was often stolen from us and intentionally hidden from us. And so, one of the key aspects of this new job role that I've created for myself is doing that research and being able to translate it and bring it to my audience. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to. I've already started diving in to some of the research for January. I've outlined all of the articles that I want to read, and I'm going to break them down in a YouTube video and then also through Substack, just synthesize the information. But for now, I'm going to make some roasted potatoes because I am a little bit hungry, and then I'm going to get back to work. Hello, it is the next day. I realized as I was going through the footage yesterday that for this outro clip, I forgot to turn on the mic, and so the volume was so low, and in boosting the gain for it, it just did not sound good. So I said, you know what, let me take some time this morning to gather my thoughts again and re articulate what I had said in that outro clip because it was what I wanted to leave you with, and I wanted to leave you with a strong note. But one of the things I was talking about in the kitchen clip from yesterday was revamping my role, refining my business, my branding, my messaging. And one of the things that allowed me to do that last year was taking the time to experiment. So if you watched episode 4, I talked about how from about May 2024 through all of 2025, I call it my year and a half of throwing spaghetti at the wall because I took the time to launch a podcast, launch my membership site, Home Frequency. I still did my film and podcast work, and I was just giving myself time to play around and figure out how I wanted best to do sound and how I could help other people at the same time. What would be the best way for me to create a sustainable income from this? And I came into probably the second half, or I went into the second half of 2025 saying I wanted to devote myself to my craft. So it was around the time of mid-June when I made the decision to launch Home Frequency and start creating custom soundscapes. I said the point of this is that I want to fall in love with sound again, and I'm going to devote myself to my craft, learning about it again, starting with old reference points that I know from film sound design and using Substack, because I also started Substack last year, using Substack as a way to learn about sound again and synthesize the information and convey it to an audience. And that word devotion became my word of the year, essentially. And it's something that I want to leave you with on your mind because despite the uncertainty and chaos of last year, I had so much fun in experimenting, creating, doing sound in different types of mediums in different types of ways. And I recently did my Instagram recap for 2025, and I realized that I did production sound for 7 films, or on 7 short films. I did post production sound for my first ever feature films. So I worked on the dialogue editing and Foley editing for 1 film each, and that was the first time I'd ever worked on feature films. I also published 20 Substack articles, and I released, I think it was a total of about 20 original soundscapes through Home Frequency. And when I saw that kind of creative output, I was shocked at myself, like, because it didn't feel like it. It felt so effortless, and I was in such flow state for many of those projects that I said, imagine if I devote myself in this capacity just as a lifestyle, because that's what I've always wanted to have, a creative lifestyle, a creative life. And last year helped me realize that it is possible if I devote myself to my craft and making sound a priority. And so that's what I'm coming into 2026 with. That energy is further devoting myself to expanding beyond my comfort zone. So, not just the film sound design, not just doing production and post production sound for film and podcasts, but expanding into my new identity, which I haven't launched yet. I haven't talked about it yet or officially said what the new job title will be, because I'm going to take my time throughout the first half of January to update it across my social media platforms. But that momentum from 2025 is what I'm bringing with me into 2026. The kind of creative output and inspiration I received from just giving myself the freedom to play, and also the freedom to define my role and define how I want to do sound, and also receive messaging from the universe, from guidance in how I'm supposed to help serve others. Because through Home Frequency as well, I was able to look at the data in my analytics and the Homey feedback and understand how best I can help serve people with my skills. So 2026, I would say 2025 was for me falling in love with sound again. And 2026 onwards, it's going to be sharing that and expanding that into the collective. And so that it was the message that I wanted to leave you with yesterday, that the audio clip was too low. And I felt it was important to restate it with clarity today, because that's how I want to end off this video. So I'm going to ask you to, if you feel so called, to share in the comments, what are you going to devote yourself to in 2026? And it doesn't have to be something to do with your job, your profession. I think it's very much find something in your personal life, a hobby that you want to devote yourself to. Because for me, it gave me a reason to get up every morning despite whatever state the world is in, whatever chaos and uncertainty there is. That's what kept me going. And you have to find those things in life that keep you going. So what are you going to devote yourself to